Here we're going to do an audio upgrade, and we're going to do it to this 2026 Ford Transit Custom van. Now this van is brand new, and the audio system in here is okay, but when you want to listen to the full range, it's not that great. So all it's got is front speakers and that's it. And I think they've done a really good job in trying to reproduce as much sound as they can out of the front speakers. But however, you could obviously improve it by a considerable amount. Now, to actually do this, we're doing it as an OEM integration. So we're keeping the factory screen controls. We're not changing any of that. The stereo is basically, we're using an amp integration to actually increase the volume of the speakers and change the speakers as well. So to do that, we have to actually get to the factory amplifier, and it's actually behind the speedo. That's where they are on these vans. So we had to take all this apart just to get to it, so then we could integrate into it. Now we're not going to chop any of the wiring. We're using proper integration wiring, so then basically you can revert back to original again if the customer wished to do so at a later date. So the product that we're actually going to be installing in this today is the Helix Compose speakers. So it's a very high quality speakers from Audiotec Fischer. We're going to do the Helix Compose subwoofer, which is going to go underneath the bench seat there, and we're using a match 6 up DSP amplifier. So it's an amplifier that's not just an amplifier, but it has got DSP capabilities as well. And we're going to be using that DSP to reproduce the sound through the speakers and the subwoofer, and just try to get the most out of it. So, I mean, this is how the dash looks. It looks quite horrific, but however, we'll show you how we take it all off. Right, so this is the door, and basically door card's off, and this is how you see it. And what you have these as your factory speakers, and it's got a very tiny magnet. It's all paper coned. And you can see it's not like the best of quality, and it's just mounted on there, and you've got the expanse of this whole tinny door, as you could hear. So this side is complete, and you can see we've done the sound deadening using comfort mat sound deadening, and it's really stiffened it up. So if I just knock that, the difference between that and that, you can see it's just made a massive difference. So what the sound deadening's done is stiffen it up, and it helps prevent resonance. And basically the resonance is where you get sound going through it, and it just vibrates against the metal. But we haven't just done that. Behind the outer skin, on top of the actual sound deadening itself, we put the sound isolator, which is this sort of matting here, and that goes on top of the sound deadening. And what that does, that actually helps with the sound signal. So it prevents the sound signal passing through, and it just, instead of going through there and then bouncing back on itself, then it creates all sorts of messy noises. This just prevents that from happening. So that's the extra stage that we've gone through. We've also done a lot of work on the door card, which we'll show you once that's complete. But that's it, complete. That's ready for the door card to go on. Right, so this is the original speaker. As you can see, it's got a very small basket, and it's got paper cone, and that is like a foamy material which over time degrades, and it just basically disintegrates. So you can see it's not the best of quality speakers, but you know, that's what they do as factory. So what we're replacing it with is this Helix composed speaker. Now this doesn't have a metal basket, it has a composite basket, and the reason for that is because it helps prevent from warping, and within heat and coldness it stays true and it doesn't move around at all. When you have some of the metal case baskets, which most speakers are made out of, to be honest with you, you know, it can suffer from warping. It's really rare, but however they've just gone to that one stage further to prevent that from happening. And like I said, the likelihood of that happening is really slim, but that just shows the length that Helix goes when it comes to their speaker technology. The magnet's obviously a lot bigger, the wattage out of it is going to be a lot higher, and it's just the pure quality and technology behind that. It just gives a really nicer sound, and even the cone material that they use is all premium. So the subwoofer that we're installing into this van is the Helix IK ES10.1. Now what it is a 10-inch shallow self-enclosed subwoofer and it's ported as well. So let me just show you. It's that one here. You can see it's got a 10-inch woofer there, and that's the port just there. It's a nice box, very well made, and looks very classy. Now the thing about this subwoofer, the reason why I just want to mention this, is the fact that this here is going to be passive, and we have the amplifier, the DSP amplifier that we're installing in here. That's what's actually going to be powering this up. But you can have this as an active subwoofer quite easily, and by doing that, it's by taking this out and fitting a IMS amplifier, which Helix sells. So it's quite a nice little feature, that. So then if you take that out and then buy one of their amplifier, it becomes a little DSP amp that's now active. So then that could just run straight into any sound system that you have without having to have an external mono amplifier. So, you know, that's quite nice. But the way that we're doing this, we run this passive, so we're just keeping this as it is, and the amplifier that we're installing on here is going to do all the work. Now, this is really nice and shallow, and it's got the legs there, so you can just sit on the floor. You could put things on top of it, it won't damage it, and it's going to go underneath this bench seat here. So when it does go in there, it's not going to take up any room at all, because it's just going to go underneath. Right, we now completed the audio upgrade on this Ford Transit Custom van. As you can see, it's all gone back to how it was originally kept, so you don't even know the upgrade's been done. But obviously with all the sound and everything, you know, we've stiffened everything up. So that's like rock hard compared to this side that hasn't been treated at all. And the door cards as well. All just feels really flimsy. So, you know, the door's absolutely rock hard, so there's no resonance in that door whatsoever. So as you can see, it just looks standard. The sub box is underneath there, so it's tucked away nice and neat. So it doesn't interfere with the user at all. It's not in anyone's way. So it's quite a nice install because of the way that it just basically goes back in its OEM location. But obviously, the main advantage of this is the sound. I'm just going to talk to you very briefly about the tuning process of this amplifier. So it's linked up to the amp via USB lead. So we open up the firmware. And the firmware is an Audiotec Fischer firmware. So now it's already recognised the amp that's been fitted to this vehicle, and it's just loading up now. So it's all connected up. So we initially have to look at the input signal. So it's actually the output from the stereo going into the amplifier. And that's basically the signals that we need to have a look at. Now if it's a dirty signal, then we just need to like clean it up, and there's a whole process of what we have to do that. Then the next thing to do is actually do a signal management. So basically what we're doing, we're assigning signal inputs to our outputs. So basically any inputs, or shall I say any outputs from the stereo that we're getting, we need to then assign that signal as an input to the amplifier. So then we got the output that we need, the desired output that we need. And because this only has a 2-channel output on the stereo, we only got 2 channels to play with. So we need to, we only upgrade the front speakers here and put a sub output and the sub. So that's all we've done in this upgrade. So we need the 2 channels to provide us the signals for the 2 front speakers, which is not a problem. But then also we need those 2 channels to provide us a signal for the subwoofer. And basically we do it through that process there. And then you've got the outputs. And what we need to do first, we need to use an RTA to actually receive all the signals, to actually measure the signals that the actual amplifier is producing out. And we use a microphone to do that. And there's this wand microphone that we have, and we attach that to the amplifier via another bit of kit that we have. It's a tuning kit. And I sit on the driver's side, so mimicking the driver listening to the sound. So it's all focused to the driver. And I'll wave it around my ear. So basically it's as if it's your head that is being the location of where you want the sound to project to. So once we've got the input signals from the actual wand, we'll sum that up, and then we'll then put it into the actual output of the speaker. And then once we've done that, we just listen to it and we just see what it sounds like. And then that's where we fine tune it, and that's when we have to use our ears to try to make it sound even better after that. Once we've done that, we'll save it, and that's all saved to the actual amplifier itself, and then that's your desired output. So I mean, this is a very, very quick, brief outlook on the tuning process of this amplifier. The actual process does take time to do. It's not a quick job to do, and depends how complicated the system is. So obviously if you've got a vehicle that has loads and loads of speakers, there's loads and loads of channels that you have to look at and configure. So it just takes that much longer to do. So now we've got a great enhanced sound quality from this vehicle. You know, it is just a massive improvement. It's not even a little bit of an improvement. So that's where we want to be, really. Because there's an OEM integration, you know, it's using the factory, set up the factory screen. You can't change the screen on this. The screen does not just the stereo, but does every other functionality when it comes to the vehicle itself. Even the heat controls and what have you is all done by that. So, you know, we have to improve the sound quality from it, but using the factory system that's already in there. And that's what we've achieved. So this is the dash of the vehicle. So that is the actual stereo, the screen here. It's quite a big screen. It's all touch screen, but like I said, it's all factory. All the heater controls you can see is on the touch screen part of it down there. So if you lose that, you lose all of this. And also, there's a lot of the car functionality is done through this as well. And that's the actual speedo clock, which, as these days, are all digital and mirrors what happens there. So that's the audio upgrade done on this 2026 Ford Transit Custom van.